welcome to This Explainer. Today we're jumping right into what is arguably the greatest industrial duopoly on Earth. We're talking about the historic, incredibly high-stakes rivalry between Airbus and Boeing, a fight that has literally reshaped the entire commercial aviation industry as we know it. You know, for the absolute longest time, one aircraft essentially reigned supreme. It was the undisputed champion of the skies. But recently, the history books were completely rewritten, and a multi-billion-dollar crown actually changed hands. So you've got to wonder, how exactly did that happen? Let's dive into Section 1, the old king of the skies. To really grasp the scale of this monumental market shift, we have to rewind to an era of absolute Boeing dominance. Now today, both the Boeing 737 and the Airbus A320 are the undisputed heavyweights of the industry. But for decades, the 737 wasn't just a competitor. It was a total global phenomenon. It held the ultimate record as the most successful, best-selling commercial aircraft family in the world, hands down. And this rivalry is deep. It spans actual generations. Boeing launched the original 737 way back in 1967. We're talking about an era of slide rules and drafting paper here. It took over 20 years for Airbus to even enter the ring when the A320 had its first flight in 1988. But the true climax of this battle, the real tipping point, arrived much later, culminating in those critical, industry-altering years of 2018 and 2019. Back in the late 60s and 70s, airlines absolutely flocked to the 737. Through continuous iterations from the classic right through to the next generation, it totally dominated the market. And the secret sauce? It really boiled down to low operating costs, incredibly reliable performance, and easy maintenance. It was essentially the ultimate workhorse. Actually, at its peak, it was said that a Boeing 737 took off or landed somewhere in the world every 2 seconds. Think about that for a second.
Which brings us to Section 2, Airbus's new challenge.
Things completely shifted in 1988. Airbus didn't just build a new plane. They completely revolutionized how aircraft are flown. The A320 introduced digital fly-by-wire technology to commercial airliners. Basically, by replacing heavy traditional manual flight cables with an electronic digital interface, Airbus drastically reduced the plane's weight. At the same time, it made flights remarkably modern, highly efficient, and exceptionally safe. And then Airbus pulled off a real game changer, the common type rating, by offering a whole family of varying capacities, so the A318, A319, A320, and A321, pilots could easily transition between aircraft with very minimal retraining. This flexibility was huge. It allowed airlines to swap out planes dynamically based on ticket sales, and because of that, Airbus steadily started winning over carriers all around the globe. Moving right along to Section 3, the Neo Master Stroke. Okay, to keep that momentum going, Airbus played their biggest strategic card yet. They introduced the NEO program, which stands for New Engine Option. Now, designing a brand new plane from scratch takes at least a decade and costs billions. So instead, Airbus upgraded their already successful A320 airframe. They slapped on massive next-generation engines and refined the aerodynamics, specifically to slash fuel consumption. It was a brilliant move. You know, in the commercial aviation business, profit margins are famously razor-thin. That means fuel consumption is often an airline's single largest operational expense. Because the A320neo was so extremely efficient, it offered airlines the chance to save literal millions of dollars per aircraft. This immediate financial advantage triggered an absolute gold rush, leading to a massive, record-breaking surge of global orders. And that leads us to a darker chapter in Section 4, the Boeing 737 MAX crisis. Seeing Airbus just gobbling up market share, Boeing obviously had to counter quickly. They launched the 737 MAX to directly compete with the Neo, and initially, it sold incredibly well. But then, absolute tragedy struck when 2 fatal crashes occurred in 2018 and 2019. In response to these devastating accidents, global aviation authorities really had no choice but to ground the entire 737 MAX fleet worldwide. The fallout from this was completely unprecedented. The crisis severely damaged Boeing's long-standing public image and its historic reputation for engineering reliability. And while Boeing was bogged down in this extended period of groundings and intense regulatory scrutiny, Airbus found itself perfectly positioned to capitalize. They absorbed immense order volumes and drastically expanded their lead in the market. So here we are at Section 5, Aviation's new leader. It was basically a perfect storm, right? Airbus's steady, relentless innovation on one side, and Boeing's tragic stumbles on the other. This created a shift that honestly, no one thought was even possible. Total historical orders for the Airbus A320 family eventually eclipsed the Boeing 737. The decades-long era of Boeing's undisputed reign at the very top of the commercial aviation mountain had officially come to an end.
Now, Airbus's victory wasn't just a stroke of luck. It was a masterclass in strategic execution. They pushed the envelope with fly-by-wire technology early on. They recognized the existential importance of fuel efficiency with the NEO program, and they made incredibly agile business decisions that perfectly aligned with the harsh economic realities facing modern airlines.
As industry analysts have pointed out, and this is a quote, the Airbus A320 family has left behind the Boeing 737 to set a new record. That isn't just a fun sales statistic. It represents a seismic shift in industrial power. It completely redefines who leads the commercial skies today, and it serves as a pretty stark reminder that in business, no crown is safe forever if you stop innovating.
But, despite all these shifting records, we really have to acknowledge the reality of this modern duopoly. Today, both the Boeing 737 and the Airbus A320 remain absolutely critical global infrastructure. Every single day, thousands and thousands of flights are safely operated by both of these incredible aircraft. They are essentially the twin pillars keeping our modern, interconnected world moving.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to chew on. With Airbus currently sitting at this new peak, what happens next? Will Boeing be able to radically innovate, rebuild its historic trust, and reclaim that #1 spot? Or has Airbus cemented a dominance that's going to last for decades to come? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating topic with me. Keep learning and keep your eyes on the skies.